Check 1, 2. Check 1, 2. Kick it. Kick it. And we are live. Welcome everybody to the program. Today is May 18 in the year 2023. We're still here. The virus didn't kill us. The conspiracy theorists didn't get us. So we're here today to, we're going to take a stroll down memory lane today. Stroll down memory lane. Check 1, 2. Stroll down memory lane. We're gonna look and see. We're gonna go back into time and look at a famous conspiracy theorist, Mr. George Webb of lies. George Webb of lies. The infamous George Webb of lies. Welcome everybody to the program. We're gonna have fun today. We're gonna have a good time. Welcome. How you doing? Marcus Conte reporting on himself. Oh man. You know, I was going to take, I saw this, someone mailed this lawsuit, a real live lawsuit in a federal court in Florida. And my name is fucking smeared all over it. By who? George Webb. So there's a lawsuit, and it's George Webb going after a guy named Dr. Robert Malone. That's what it is. That's what George and company have done historically. They use lawsuits to go after their enemies, and you sue somebody who has a lot of popularity, and then suddenly you're popular because you're suing the popular guy, and they monetize the negative energy that they create. They're real characters, George Webb. But to George Webb's credit, George Webb is in my view, a kind of a talented psychopath, fucking schizophrenic genius of sorts. And what makes him genius is that he's fun to watch. He's very entertaining. You don't know if he's going to explode or not. However, is he schizophrenic enough to have killed his best friend, Jenny Moore? You remember Jenny Moore? Remember the story of Jenny Moore? Now, a lot of people watching the program today, they're not going to really know a lot of the background to what's happening, but there is a significant background to these stories. Vinny in the chat certainly knows what we're talking about. But a lot of new faces don't know who George Webb is. Dr. Malone, I'm not really familiar with who and what Dr. Malone does, but we're going to find out a little about him as well. But the fact is that this reporter, Marcus Conte, is being named in a federal lawsuit down in Florida for and being smeared too, saying that I was I'm some kind of Wall Street ripoff artist. George Webb's calling me a scam, a Wall Street scam artist, when I was reporting on his conspiracies. So anyway, we'll unpack this stuff. It's like anybody in the chat, Vinny DiMartini on the wrench in the chat. No, the trolls love to come into this sort of discussion. So that's why I kind of did it on a surprise without a warning. Just make the video and then let them come in later and discuss. This is going to be ongoing. I know George Webb. Hello, George. Hello, George. Hello, your crazy family and your fucking crazy psychopath friends. Hello, George. Welcome to the program. Long time no see. And Dr. Malone, my sympathies to you for having these characters on your ass. I know the feeling. Kindly watch the video all the way through, and I'll give you the evidence you need to close this case. I know it's hard to sue a guy like George Webb for defamation in lawsuit, because that's what he's doing. He's weaponizing the lawsuit to go after you, and that in effect is criminal or civil anyway. But if you do need my assistance, I'm here for you. Dr. Malone, Dr. Robert Malone, I'm here for you. If you'd like to come on the program and discuss further, I'm also here for that, for you for that. And, again, I sympathize with, I think it's very, Snake says, who is George Webb? George Webb is a conspiracy theorist online. He was responsible for accusing that woman of being the, ground zero fucking COVID-19 lady. Who he's a wacky dude. He's out there, and there's a million people know who George Webb is. So by the end of the program, and you'll know who he is. And George Webb knows me. I interviewed him in D.C., and sometimes he loves me, sometimes he hates me. Now he's throwing me under the bus in his lawsuit, so we have to address it. Hey, that's libel, George Webb. You're aware of that, right? When you slander somebody in a lawsuit like that and make up fake crap, you're not only perjuring yourself, but you're opening yourself up to a counter lawsuit. All right, so keep that in mind. So again, here they are. Here's our contestants today. This is George Webb on the right. George Webb, the great conspiracy theorist. Imran Awan, the spy ring in Congress, the rat lines. Remember all the conspiracy theorists, conspiracy theories George would pump out. And that is the good Dr. Robert Malone, who I don't know much about. I understand he is a real doctor, a virologist who spoke out about the, vaccines and the potential dangers of those vaccines. And for that, he was attacked and ridiculed and like everybody else. The connection between Webb and Malone is, to me, unknown. But I can tell you, Dr. Malone, George and company are coming after you because you're rich and you got a lot of popularity and you got a fucking million people paying attention to you. That's the only reason Webb and his crazy brother and the rest of the trolls will come after you. They're coming after you for your popularity. I, on the other hand, could care less. I would love for you to be my friend. That's what these guys want. They want you to be their friend, but they don't know how to do that. So anyway, so that's who these two characters are, and we have to talk about it because it's look, they're dragging me into the fray, and I'm just a peaceful guy, man. I'm just a peaceful guy who meditates and tells the truth to the best of his ability, and that's who I am. Anyway. Get a little ill feeling when I talk about Webb and his psycho people. Jason Goodman's name comes up in the chat as well. We'll talk about him. Jason Goodman, for the record, Dr. Robert Malone, I have no affiliation, regardless of what Webb says or Goodman says or the rest of them. I have no affiliation, no love, no back-end dealings with any of these people. I disavow everything that they're saying today. I was on Goodman's show once or twice. He was covering a expose that I did on the New York Department of Sanitation. I was on the show. I was a guest on the show, and then it looked like George Webb killed his fucking best friend, Jenny Moore. Right? That case is still open. Do I still call George Webb a suspect in that murder? Absolutely. He never convincingly, he was the only one there when Jenny Moore was killed in the hotel that he was living in. I have that autopsy, by the way, that shows a violent death, a very rough body Jenny Moore had when she died. And could George have roughed her up? Probably, maybe. I don't know. Somebody roughed her up, and then she was dead. Right? And that was George's close friend. How did Jenny Moore die in a hotel room with George in the room next door? Right? Suddenly, right? A violent death, right? So George Webb is still an ongoing suspect in that. Pyramid 7 points out umbrella wars. Yeah, and that was Jason Goodman. These people are crazy. Jason Goodman, once upon a time, I was down there at the Epstein trial. I was covering, Jeffrey Epstein trial in New York, Southern District of New York, right before he killed himself in the jail. And I see Jason Goodman walking by, and I ask him a question, and he attacks me with a fucking pink umbrella. He tried to swat the camera out of my hand. So these guys are fucking loose. They're loose cannons. Right? They're very dangerous. Anyway, so that's the thumbnail, and so let's jump right in. And then we'll look at the markets in a little while. So here's the lawsuit. You can't make it up. If you think I'm making it up, I'm not making it up. There it is, United States District Court, Middle District of Florida, Orlando. We have a lawsuit against George Webb against the Dr. Robert Malone, defendant. Real stuff, amended complaint, stamped, filed. These guys they're filing lies at the federal court level. Not these guys. I'm sorry, Dr. Malone. I'm talking about Webb and his consorts. Dr. Malone, this type of thing doesn't surprise me at all. This is what happens, So it turns out that I don't know the gist of the lawsuit. What George Webb is trying to claim that Dr. Malone slandered him or libeled him and is making up lies about him. I guess he's calling him. A quick calculation: George Webb has put out something in the range of more than 1,000 attack pieces against me over the last 2 years, including pushing out fake documents. That is called both stalking and malicious defamation. Yeah, it is. But again, Dr. Malone, you're dealing with a crazy person. These guys are... George Webb, this is a frivolous lawsuit. It will get thrown out, and I sympathize that you have to keep answering it and such. But anyway, so Dr. Malone sends that out to his crowd, and also sends out an article that I did, Marcus Conte, Conspiracy Brothers. It's a clip that I wrote, a piece that I wrote about George Webb and his crazy brother, who suffer from schizophrenia on their own. On Webb's brother's own admission, the family is plagued with schizophrenia, whether it's drug-induced or whatever. But there's schizophrenia in the family, and that video was here. A lot of these links are dead because it's it's just old, and I moved shit around. But if you want the video of Webb's brother defining the schizophrenia in the family, I can certainly dig it up. Right. So George Webb sues Malone. Malone then confesses that George Webb has attacked him over 1,000 times. Webb has attacked me in a less invasive way, but his brother has put out hundreds of hit pieces on me. They're 5-minute stalker videos that I have. I have a whole file of them, probably more than 200, less than 1,000. There's a lot of them that I have, anyway. But what do I have to do with it? Here's George Webb now rerunning the ridiculous conspiracy that I am somehow working with this guy Jason Goodman in New York. It's a conspiracy theory. Again, for the record, I was on Jason Goodman's show once or twice. I was a guest. That's it. I was a guest and I was gone. I was also a fan of the show back in 2016. But I have no affiliation, no ongoing communication. As I said, Jason Goodman, the last time I saw him was 3 years ago, and he attacked me with an umbrella at the Epstein, next to a fucking federal court. He swung his pink umbrella at me and almost knocked my camera out of my fucking hand. So on or about April 9, this is recent, April 9, it's now May 18. At or around April 9, Robert Malone retweeted conspiracy theorist Marcus Conte. So there's a smear right there. What makes me a conspiracy theorist? What the fuck are you talking about? So what right there? I'm again, educational philosophical videos. That's what I do. I talk about the facts and stuff. Marcus Conte, who accused plaintiff George Webb of murdering his research partner, an ex-police officer named Jenny Moore. Right? Did I accuse George Webb of killing his research partner, Jenny Moore? Yes, I did, because there was no other suspect. Everybody else was ruled out, and George was standing there alone with his dick in his hand. Right? It looked like George did it. Right? And but here's where the smear gets a little deeper. Remember, George is a public figure. Right? George wants 1 million people to watch him, and not all those million people are going to love you, George. Right? Some of them are going to know the truth about you, like today. So he goes on to say in this lawsuit, Marcus Conte was well known on Wall Street for defrauding investors using a Ouija board to make investment decisions. Wow, what a lie that is. Let me read that one again. So this is George Webb reporting on this reporter saying that I'm well known on Wall Street. Who? What? Where is Wall Street? What kind of broad stroke? What is Wall Street? Who knows me on Wall Street? Can you name one person? Could you name one investor who was ever defrauded by this reporter on Wall Street using a fucking Ouija board to make investment decisions, George? Can you show any evidence of that at all? Oh, are you referring to the book I wrote, The Psychic Investor, under the pseudonym Marcus Goodwin? Is that what you're talking about? The New York Times best-selling book? Ah, there he is. Look how fucking handsome he is, right? Look how handsome Marcus is. Right? This is the book he wrote. Right? Hey, there he is. He's and look at all the famous people that gave kudos to the book. Right there he is, The Psychic Investor, 1999, Adams Media, a major accomplishment, right? And here's the problem, George. You don't have the book, and I never mention, there's not a fucking mention of any Ouija board at all in this book, right? There's mentions of other things, but certainly never direct investment advice to anybody. There's no defrauding. I never handled anybody's money. Right? So what you're saying is a blatant fucking lie. Marcus Conte was well known on Wall Street for defrauding investors using a Ouija board. Incorrect. Conspiracy theorist and shock jock Goodman and Marcus Conte enjoy making outrageous lies for ratings and to raise money for the New York media outlets. All right. Well, I'm not in New York. If you haven't noticed, I haven't been in New York in 2.5 years. So this is, again, conspiracy theorist. Here's a photograph of Goodman and I. He was interviewing me. I was on his show. We sat in a park in Madison Square Park in New York, and we talked. Right. So, but that's just a clip from the video. Goodman had me on his show as a guest. All right. What else? So. Crowdsourced shoes. Are people aware that George and his brother have stalked and harassed me essentially every day for 6 years? Now, to Goodman's defense, I'll tell you, man, George Webb's brother, right, Dopey Dave, went after Goodman every day with frivolous fake lawsuits. D. George Swaggart versus Goodman. You could read it. I mean, daily garbage. I don't know why the judges in New York entertained Swaggart for so long, his brother. But they did, and that case turned out to be totally frivolous. In the end, Webb's brother retracted all his comments. The judge found Goodman to be innocent. The case was closed. It was, retracted with prejudice, meaning that meaning that Swaggart and his brother can't go after Goodman anymore in a lawsuit. That's what prejudice means. But anyway, man. So I hope this is it's going to get a little more interesting as we move along. So that's the lawsuit. That's the accusations against this reporter, and that's why we're talking about it. Here's the article that I published. This is a long time ago. This is 2020. And I described to you the stalkingness of these guys. Enter stalker. I had up the videos of, Acton. Well, I don't want to talk about him. So again, that's the article. But that's the article that triggered Dr. Malone to pull me into the fray, I guess. But Dr. Malone, if you're watching, simply go to my page, right, on YouTube, right, Marcus Conte on YouTube, and click. Just go into the search and put George Webb in there, right? So my page, and go to the search and search George Webb, right? And you'll see. Look at all the videos I did on him, right? All of the videos, all of the evidence of him possibly killing his fucking roommate, all right? I interviewed him down in in Washington, D.C. about that. And we'll look at some of these videos in a second. All right? We'll look at the accuracy of the great George Webb. Does George Webb speak truth at all? Well, he once upon a time, he made a video about me, and he had everything about my life and my work wrong, which makes him a bad liar. But anyway, here's let's take a look at Dr. Malone. I don't really know his work very well, but he is a U.S. virologist. He's talking extensively about vaccine, mass psychoses, and such subjects, sovereignty, citizen sovereignty. I don't know these subjects. I'm not really that versed in these subjects, but here's who he is. So Dr. Robert Malone is an American physician and biochemist. His early work focused on mRNA technology and repurposing research. So he's a researcher. Just to go on the record as well, look at the number of views the guy gets, right? If you want to know why George Webb is going after Dr. Robert Malone, here's your answer. His videos get 342,000 views. This video got 1 million views, 641,000 views on YouTube alone. He's got like 1 million followers on Twitter. Dr. Malone, that's the reason they're going after you. They're trying to divert that attention to George Webb and his stupid theories. Right. And they drag people like me into it. So that's Dr. Malone. He has a website. Here's Dr. Malone's website, Robert W. Malone, MD. So he's got this wonderful looking website. He's an author too. Look at this. Lies my government told me. and the better future coming. Oh, there you go. I love it. Maybe I haven't read it. I don't own it, but look, if somebody wants to pass it on to me, I'll read it. I'll read the book. So Dr. Malone is a savvy guy. Let's listen to him speak a little bit, try to find out a little more about this guy.
Burdens around them in terms of alternate meeting. In terms of your conversational moment with my friend Kat, you asked about the potential enforcement arm. What I've heard proposed is that the World Trade Organization would function as that enforcement arm for the World Health Organization. So the potential enforcement, should a nation state not comply.
I wanted to address Watson. It took about 5 minutes to figure out George Webb was controlled opposition. Yeah. Controlled opposition. What does that mean? Controlled opposition. No. George Webb is a grifter. George Webb takes money from stupid people that believe his stupid ideas. Now, is that controlled opposition? No. George Webb. His center focus is on himself. Right? He's to enrich himself. He doesn't work and or organize with anybody. He just blabs his mouth, and wherever the attention is, that's where he goes. Is that controlled opposition? No. These are conspiracy theory terms. Let's just respectfully, let's just put all of the conspiracy terms aside. George Webb is controlled opposition. George Webb is a crazy person. That's how you have to view him. George Webb is, and in his family is schizophrenic, is a schizophrenic genius in a sense, where he enjoys manipulating the narrative in his favor. And what he does is he locks on to guys like me, or Robert Malone, right? Bigger audience, right? And he locks on. And he tries to prove that they're wrong and he's right, or makes up lies about them. And then you have to come on, you got to come on your channel and defend the lies.
With the mandates from Mr. Tedros, and let us be clear, Mr. Tedros can declare a public health emergency for any reason, and he can declare whatever measures he...
All right, so I'm convinced that Dr. Robert Malone is a real doctor. He has clearly some strong opinions about sovereignty in America, and certainly the administration of the mRNA vaccine, which was obviously unproven, and we support him in his quest to show us from a virological standpoint that was true. So that's Malone. So here's how I discovered it. Look at the date. It's back in I don't know, maybe it's got to be like I don't remember, maybe 2018.
I don't know if you guys are fans of George Webb, but I certainly am. His right hand girl, task force, is dead. Is that true?
You remember this? You remember when I said this?
Can someone look at that? I don't know. I saw him do a requiem or whatever with some other guy. Is that? I mean, here he is. He's a reporter on the street in D.C. And what appears to be his reporting partner and clearly his girlfriend of some sort is dead. Dies in a hotel room. It's pretty heavy.
All right, so that's how the story broke, right? We were all shocked, right? Task Force, right? His buddy in the videos, Jenny Moore, suddenly ends up dead, right? That's how I got involved in the story. It just didn't make sense. How did Jenny Moore just die? She was vibrant. She was down there in D.C. She was not old at all, and suddenly she's dead. How did she die? I don't know. It was suspicious to me.
That's pretty heavy right there. George Webb was instrumental in pinning down the Iwan story, the spy ring in Congress. He educated us all on the rat lines throughout the country using, cargo ships as transport for weapons and guns and a lot of other stuff. George was on.
So there you go, right? So I was a fan, right? It turns out that I was actually a fan of George Webb because, as I said, he's very convincing and he's very entertaining. And he had all these theories. And I made a video suggesting that he was all those things, but that it was very surprising that his roommate had been killed or was dead.
The ground with the Seth Rich issues, and on and on and on and on and on. Great educator. Great educator. Say what you want about him, but great educator for the people. And so if his girlfriend or his co-reporter has been murdered or died suspiciously, we should all be very, very concerned.
Yes, we should, Marcus.
Aside, I know you guys like to fight like cats and dogs, right? Fucking George is this, George is that. Fuck you. Right? The guy's girlfriend, reporter, got killed. Or we don't know if she got killed, but she's dead, according to George's reporting. Peace out. You know?
Right. So there you go. There, I was giving him kudos, right? And does George know who I am? Let's listen to George talk about me for a second. Meet George Webb and his crazy brother.
But I just saw a video from Marcus Conte, and you may remember Marcus. He came down to DC to interview me, and we both were kind of like not quite trusting each other. And I made this kind of impassioned speech right here in this chair about, even though Marcus didn't have a lot of good things to say about me, I did think he had this kind of Dylan-esque rock poet thing going on. But beyond that, beyond the superficial delivery and so forth, I think he had an inquiring mind, and he was going for truth, and I respected that. But I do think he is one of these people who is a great thinker. He does inhale a lot of information. He puts it out in kind of a poetic way.
So I'm a great thinker, but now you're smearing me, saying that I'm defrauding people on Wall Street, and that I'm somehow in bed with your ex-gay lover, Jason Goodman. You're a creep, George. You're creepy George.
And I just love his delivery.
Thank you, George. I appreciate that you love me.
I don't see him as a sanitation cop. I see him as a street reporter just like me. We all come from different professions. But these are people that have crossed the chasm to making this decision to...
Good morning in the chat, Bridget. Welcome back to the show, Bridget. Bridget knows all about these characters that we're talking about today. And you can see just how nefarious the whole thing is. If you're tuning in late, we're discussing George Webb filing a federal lawsuit against Dr. Robert Malone for defamation of him. George Webb has been defamed. And he said so in a lawsuit, and he's throwing everybody under the bus because of it. He wants everybody to pay attention to him. So we're paying attention to George today.
Do news and do truth morning, noon, and night. I see Marcus as the same sort of person who is really reaching out and trying to tell the truth. So I look at people like Marcus Conte, and he questions everything. It's like a Diogenes. That's good. I see the greatness. He passes the Tukkas test.
There you go. So why am I suddenly a liar, George? This happened after I I suggested that you may have killed Jenny Moore, and you're still saying it.
I'm not coordinating with anyone. I have a relative who occasionally does something completely unpredictable and so forth, and I am never going to be able to understand that. So don't ask me to. But I'll just leave it at that. I think Marcus has a future. Now, I've had people now on the internet saying I'm a shill for the Mercers. I'm a shill for dark weapons. I'm a cutout for Goldman Sachs. No. I think everybody knows Marcus Conte is the cutout for Goldman Sachs and the Mercers. And Bannon knows Peter Monk. They were palsy-walsy.
You see the garbage. You see how the psychopath mind works. He's trying to link this reporter to some sort of Goldman Sachs shilling. He mentions another family, and
that was his thing.
The Mercers. He runs this smear on a family called the Mercers, a wealthy family in New York, all the time, saying that in some way I'm associated with them. Right? Is this a rabbit hole? It is for many, many people, and it's intriguing because he's a fucking character, right? He believes, I think George believes a lot of this stuff, right? But he's crazy.
He was a shill for the Mercers. Marcus is a shill for the Mercers. Let's just be honest. So people say, why do you pay so much attention to Marcus? I said, I don't pay attention to Marcus. I pay attention to the freaking Mercers.
Right. You pay attention to the money, George. I understand. We all understand what you pay attention to, George.
They're billionaires.
Right. Bang, bang, right there.
You do not, discount them. They are badass mofos.
All right, so that's George Webb. Again, I gave you the rundown of some of the things. So here's George Webb. Let me play this one first. So more about him and his track record of being correct. Let's look at George Webb's track record. Firsthand, I'm going to give you firsthand track record of George Webb. If you want to watch the whole video, it's right here. George Webb debunked QAnon 2, bunch of lying fools. It's on my site. You just have to, find it on my channel. Just surf it. But listen to some of the lies that George Webb has told about this reporter. Now, he's doing it in legal papers again right now, but this is historically. This is about 5 years ago.
Ron Juan, right? And that guy happens to be me, right? So I'm just gonna let's watch something, and you'll find out, right, exactly how wrong he was. On my count, there's about 16 inconsistencies. So let's just talk about it.
I think it's only going to be a 15-minute interview, but if you're just joining us, there's a 15-minute Imran Awan interview coming up at 2:30. Marcus Conte is going to do that. I don't know. But is it tied to the Mercer that was working with Mercer Investments that was working with Steve Bannon? I don't know. It seems like he has some kind of connections at the state. So there's going to be an
Marcus Conte has some kind of connections at the state. Now, Imran Awan, right? What I did was I made up. Right before George Webb was infatuated with this guy Imran Awan, right? He was some dude that Goodman suspected of having a spy ring in Congress, right? And so I faked George out and said, "Oh, I got an interview with Imran Awan," and then George made this video with piles and piles of lies about me, who I was. He was. It was all nonsense. I basically baited George, and this is what I got.
Interview with Marcus Conte interviewing Imran Awan. We don't. It's going to be a 15-minute interview. I think we know Marcus works at Mercer Way, which is 1166 Avenue of America.
He even gives you an address where I work. I don't know who these people are. There's no Mercers. It's all garbage.
Avenue in New York. Don't know what they do. It sounds kind of like insurance brokerage, like agency. He also works for this company called Leading Way.
I work for Leading Way. Never. This is all fake. This is George Webb spinning conspiracy theory par excellence. This is how he does it. Right? He throws out 100 lies and maybe one will stick. Right? I don't know the Mercers. I don't know the Leading Way. I never worked for 100% wrong so far, George. Let's continue.
And that's out in Los Angeles area, I think. And Leading Way seems to be a company that does payday loans type of thing. If you're short on cash, same sort of thing probably as Law Cash did, that Shields guy did, loan money in order to get you through a tough spot.
So I'm a loan shark. That's what he's trying to say right here.
He also seems to be somehow connected to Stanford University. in the biology department. I'm not sure if that's his sister or whatnot. So
Stanford, I'm affiliated with Stanford Biology Department. I've never been to Stanford. I don't have a sister. And I've never been to Stanford. I didn't even know where it was. I had to look it up when he said it.
Marcus gets around New York. I think he's from Larchmont, New York. He's also.
I'm not from Larchmont, New York. I've never been to Larchmont, New York. I'm from Staten Island in Brooklyn.
Kind of got some
And the East Village.
connection to Bethesda, Maryland.
Never been to Bethesda, Maryland. Never been there, George.
There's a real interesting guy who lives in the same building in Bethesda, Maryland with the World Bank.
So he's saying that I live in a building with a guy who works in the World Bank. This is Dr. Malone, if you're still watching, this is who George Webb is. It's all lies. You could submit this video to the court and you'll see it, right? I'll be your witness. I'll be your star witness. The guy's crazy, right? He's just a liar. He's a funny liar, but it gets under people's skin, right? Especially if he's accusing you of being the other question. Stop right there. Is a crazy guy like George Webb, who makes up a lot of shit about a lot of people, is he capable of murdering his friend Jenny Moore? Is this a prime candidate when someone suddenly dies and this is the only guy standing there? A guy who comes on fucking YouTube and lies about people and is willing to sue people in federal court with a bunch of lies? Yeah, hell fucking yeah. He's suspect number one still. There's no time on murder, by the way, George. There's no statute of limitations on murder. Just be aware of that.
Meth investor for the World Bank. So it's just this odd kind of, and plus he tells me he's kind of like a jet setter racing around with these different bands.
Jet setter racing around with bands. No, I play guitar and piano, jack off.
So it's interesting to see how this would this materialize. It kind of sounds like a Jet Set Insider setup for the interview. How did he get this? How did Marcus Conte with 150 subscribers or 300 subscribers get the Imran Awan in?
Because I made it up, George, you jerk off. I made it up to bait you. And look at you. You're just spooing. I say, yeah, I got an interview with Imran Awan, and George goes online and tells 20 lies about the reporter, trying to switch the narrative to him. Gotcha, George. Gotcha.
Kind of jet setting all around. He tells me he's like to be a manager for all these bands, top bands. So how does that work? He knows this guy named Chris Cornell. I don't know if it's I know it's not the same guy who died last year, the famous Chris Cornell. I don't think. I think it's.
Chris Cornell. He says I'm.
How did he get this? How did Marcus Conte with 150 subscribers or 300 subscribers get the Imran Awan interview? Kind of jet setting all around. He tells me he's like to be a manager for all these bands, top bands. So how does that
I never managed a band.
work? He knows this guy named Chris Cornell. I don't know if it's I know it's not the same guy who died last year, the famous Chris Cornell. I don't think.
He's trying to say that I'm somehow affiliated with Chris Cornell of Soundgarden. I am not. I don't like Soundgarden, let alone manage Soundgarden or know the singer of Soundgarden. That's stupid.
I think it's going to happen.
Chris Milk says the real story is Jenny. This is all a sidetrack. Yeah, well, respectfully, there's more than one way to skin a cat. And when dealing with guys like George Webb, sometimes you got to trick him. You got to like smoke him out of his chair. And sometimes kissing his ass a little bit is good, or look, you could disagree with the way that I smoked him out and revealed how fucking stupid and wrong he is. You can criticize that, but I think it's valid. Here is his statements, and in front of you is the reporter who's clarifying all of the fucking lies, that none of it has any substance at all. Everything that comes out of the guy's mouth thus far is a lie.
I knew Marcus was not I knew that.
We could talk more about Jenny Moore. Was Jenny Moore drugged? How did she die? Asks David Brown. She was found in a hotel room with bruises. She had a pacemaker. There was various toxicology things in her body. There were certain types of prescribed painkillers. It wasn't ruled as a murder, but I'm telling you, she was in bad shape. Her whole body was bruised. It does look like she took a beating, but was she drugged? I don't think so. I don't think that was the cause of it. Could somebody have punched her in the chest and she's wearing a pacemaker and killed her? And that's not detectable in terms of an autopsy? Yeah, I think so. But she definitely died. She definitely died in a hotel room. In a hotel room in the same hotel as George Webb. They were best friends. They were living, not in the same room, but in the same hotel. And they would go out strolling all day long, telling stories, making videos. A lot of people thought that Jenny was George's girlfriend, but Jenny was really just a fan of George, and George turned her into a martyr, sort of. Right? It's a deep rabbit hole, but it's fascinating. But let's continue George Webb's lies about this reporter. See what else he's got.
Was board of this works for a company called Mercer. And is it tied to the Mercer that was working with Mercer Investments that was working with Steve Bannon? I don't know. Anyway, we'll see if knows Chris Cornell. Sorry. We'll see if Marcus Conte was a manager for Chris Cornell. We'll see if Leading Way is actually a Payday Loans a company. Remember, this Gorbani had a second profile named Paydays.
Oh, that makes sense, George. You're so smart.
And SIU. And I was on Union Street. I went to Brooklyn. This guy, Marcus, I knew I had to take the interview because I was like, I'm going to show up on the courthouse steps. If you haven't seen yet, episode, I'm going to show up on the courthouse steps of the Supreme Court. Will George Webb show up?
Fletch says Webb went crazy over you getting the interview with Imran Awan. I would have loved to see his face. Me too, right? I got him, right? That was a good one. I tricked the conspiracy theorist to come out of his hole and show his colors. And here he is showing his colors.
Yes, I did, but I was filming it. I know. I said, I can see the hit job coming. I think this is SEIU. I can see the SEIU garbage truck coming, right? From a long way away. Now, who's paying for the truck, right? It's the only thing. I gotta.
Fletch points out the girl Jenny Moore had spent the weekend with was a girl George was having an affair with. Yeah, there was some sort of other love triangle in there where George, the suspicion was that whoever George was dating, the girl who George was dating, killed Jenny Moore. Whatever. Fact, George Webb was there. George Webb was the first to shake the door and find that Jenny wouldn't open it or something. And George Webb was the only real known person that knew Jenny, knew what room she was in that hotel.
Figure out here. So yeah, again, Marcus works for this company called Mercer.
False.
Which is, I think, an insurance broker on 1166 Fifth Avenue. He also works
1166 Fifth Avenue. 1166 Fifth. 1166 Fifth Avenue. I don't think there is an 1166 Fifth Avenue. Is there? 1166 Fifth Avenue. 1166 New York City. 1166 Fifth Avenue. Oh, maybe there is. So, 1166 Fifth Avenue. Let's see where he says I work. Where do I work, George? I'm trying to find out, man. Please tell me, George. Tell me where I work, George. Oh, look, I work across the street. It looks like I work at Mount Sinai Medical Center. It looks like there's a building over here, right across the street from Central Park. at 97th Street, right where Epstein was fucking, right where Epstein lived. Epstein lived on 71st Street. Okay, incorrect, George. I'm sorry. I'm really sorry, George. What else you got?
No, I'm not saying he's SEIU. I'm not saying Marcus is SEIU, but at SEIU, would you hire somebody to go in and record the supervisor saying you got to do at least 10 tickets? I would, because that means now all my guys are off the hook having to do 10 tickets. I can have my guys doing 2 or 3. Not saying Marcus is SEIU. I'm just saying that the motive.
All right, so he's now smearing the expose I did on the 10-ticket quota in New York City. I was the investigative reporter who exposed a ticket quota in New York City for the Department of Sanitation. And that is well documented and well known. And George Webb is saying, no, I was doing it for, somebody was paying me to say that.
Motivations would line up that he would be SEIU. When I see these kind of knee-jerk reactions on the other side, I think, oh my God, he's onto it. We gotta do some shiny object real quick. I mean, this thing came up like that, Marcus. I'm thinking SEIU. I'm thinking all those guys, SEIU guys, were hanging off the back of those garbage trucks. All those SEIU guys who are, half of them are DEA informants with very prescribed routes in their wards. Let me tell you.
He's now saying that the union workers at the Department of Sanitation are fucking gangsters.
We're hanging off the back of those garbage trucks. All those SEIU guys who are, half of them are DEA informants.
DEA informants.
With very prescribed routes in their wards. Let me tell you, if you ever are a SEIU dump truck guy and you go in somebody else's ward and try to sell drugs, you're gonna end up in the East River. Let me tell you that.
So he's calling the SEIU union workers. These are family guys. These are guys from Brooklyn, Bronx, and Queens and Staten Island who have families and are hard workers. They go to work every day throwing out the garbage. And he's saying they're murderers, they're drug dealers, drug traffickers, and really bad people. Tisk, poor you, George.
That. So I'm not saying that's what this is, but man, it feels like it. And it sure feels like it. But is it tied to the Mercer that was working with Mercer Investments that was working with Steve Bannon? I don't know. It seems like he has some kind of.
I'll start with that one because that's the funniest. I would never in a million years manage Soundgarden because they suck.
There you go, right? So there it is. There's George Webb. Totally debunked. Now, having known that, let's move forward. Having known that, conspiracy theorist falsely accuses Army reservist of starting the coronavirus. So conspiracy theorist falsely accuses Army reservist of starting coronavirus. This is George Webb, right? We're going to watch a video. And CNN did a very good job, CNN Business, in reporting this. And I'll just read a little bit, and I'll give you a background of why and what is going on with this. Right? So a U.S. Army reservist in Mom of 2 from Virginia has become the helpless target of conspiracy theorists who have falsely accused her of starting the global coronavirus pandemic. Now, think about the magnitude of what George Webb is saying. He picked somebody, what's her name? Benazzi, right? Miss Benazzi, right? Of being patient zero, accusing a single citizen of creating the coronavirus, right? Do you know how fucked up that is? How hard it would be to go on in life if everybody thinks that you are patient zero in the fucking coronavirus? It's a total fiction, right? But he has no problem smearing Miss Benazzi at all, George Webb. Mattia Benassi, that's her name. I didn't want to get it wrong. Mattia, I think I got it right. Mattia? Watson says, Soundgarden does not suck. You're losing credibility. Call him I don't like them. I never liked them. I thought Soundgarden it sounded like everything else in the 90s. It was kind of that in the middle of everything. It wasn't Nirvana, and it wasn't, I don't know, it didn't have that, it wasn't Nirvana or Weezer, you know, or even the Foo Fighters. It was something else.
Matea Benazzi says the bogus claim she is the COVID-19 patient zero has gone viral on social media in China, leaving her and her husband, a retired Air Force officer, fearing for their lives, CNN reported Monday. Now, I'm going to play it all. I got everything. I have debunked on this channel. I've debunked George Webb 25 times.
Let's
play
watch
some of the best of video.
Let's watch the
It's
video.
5 minutes. We're gonna watch it all. We're gonna see it all.
Now, this is George Webb at his best, right? This show might go on a little while, so I'm going to stay here until I get through it all. I'm almost done.
It's like waking up from a bad dream, going into a nightmare.
So this is what George Webb created. Matvey Benassi, right, was some cyclist, some athlete, and George accuses her of being patient zero for carrying the coronavirus during the pandemic. Sick.
Day after day.
This is Mahia Benassi. Before the COVID-19 pandemic, she and her husband Matt.
Just let me see something. I think I can get a better audio on the one on the post. I'm not sure. Yeah, this one's louder. Let's watch it here.
It's like waking up from a bad dream, going into a nightmare, like day after day.
This is Mahia Benassi. Before the COVID-19 pandemic, she and her husband Matt led pretty normal lives working for the US military.
We don't do anything, we just go to work, ride our bicycles.
Now they're at the center of an elaborate conspiracy theory. One of its biggest promoters is a man named George Webb.
This goes back to our story here, which is patient zero, which is Mata.
See, what you got to understand is this is what George does. George is an entertainer, right? And he doesn't care about people. He'll run people over for his own popularity. Right? And right now, Dr. Malone is on his radar. So just be aware, Dr. Malone. Just know who you're dealing with. He will come at you. Maybe his crazy brother will come at you, and they'll keep coming at you because they want your popularity. They want you to keep talking about them.
Benassi.
He's a conspiracy theorist who has nearly 100,000 subscribers on YouTube. He falsely claims, without any evidence, that Mahia brought the virus to China during a cycling competition last October.
We are interwoven into his storyline now. He's never gonna give it up.
Webb's accusations are baseless and far-flung.
Benny Benassi. This story has a lot of Benassi in this.
He even claims an Italian DJ, Benny Benassi, is part of the plot.
He's also Dutch, and he's the first coronavirus victim in Holland.
No, guys, to be honest, this is crazy. So I'm born and raised in Italy.
Have you been diagnosed with the coronavirus?
No, I'm okay. No fever, no nothing.
What an idiot, right? So he just pulls this guy, Benny Benassi, because he has the same last name, says he's Dutch, but he's in Italy. He's an Italian DJ who has no idea what any of them is talking about. I mean, just an example of how ridiculous the reaching is. And again, I'm going to prove it to you in my own experience. Fucking Schoenberger type of...
Something like this.
Is this Donnie?
Is this George?
Yes. How you doing, Donnie?
Hi, George. How are you doing? Tony O'Sullivan here from CNN.
We called Webb.
Webb, for the record as well, Webb has also sued CNN for defamation as well.
For no substantive evidence to support his claims about Mahia Benassi.
Could you talk me through the specific evidence you have that she is as you described, coronavirus patient zero?
Yeah. Well, I have to. There's a lot of circumstantial evidence, and then there's a source here that I cannot reveal.
So, specifically on Mahia Benassi.
So here's CNN asking George, what evidence do you have that she's the patient zero? He says, well, it's confidential. What a fucking liar.
A lot of
Marcus Conte reporting on his own laughter from 4 years ago.
circumstantial evidence and a source here that I can't reveal. Fucking, you got no source. What do you got? You got idiots sending you conspiracy theories. That's his source. Right? He has no source. Right? He'll never reveal a source because there is no source. And if it is a source, it's just some crackpot that sends him an email and says, "Oh, you gotta see this Benassi guy," and makes this wild connection. And then George puts his name on it. Right? That's all he does. He doesn't research. He doesn't look into anything. But there you see, that's George's evidence. I don't have any evidence. It's circumstantial, and I'm not going to talk about it. And oh, by the way, I have a source inside somewhere because I'm a quote journalist. I'm not going to tell you who my source is. So he totally dodged the question. Right? It's full of shit.
How do you know that she has the coronavirus or has antibodies, or how do you know that for sure?
Well, I have a source at the Fort Belvoir Community Hospital, and she actually works where I have someone saying that she works at the Fort Belvoir Community Hospital, and she tested positive for.
As a side note, Watson in the chat says, "You guys' taste in music sucks." What's your favorite band, Watson? Respectfully, give me your 1, 2, and 3, your favorite 3 artists, and let's see if we agree. Because I like everybody. I'm really making fun of Soundgarden because George said I was the manager. I'm indifferent about Soundgarden. I hear them and it doesn't stick. That's the only criticism.
Coronavirus.
She denies that.
She denies that? Does she deny that she works at the Fort Belvoir Community Hospital?
She denies that she's had the coronavirus, that she has any symptoms of the coronavirus. She and her husband don't have the coronavirus.
The Benassis say YouTube isn't doing enough to stop the spread of conspiracy theories.
When we got the video removed, how quickly do you think that video popped up in other places on YouTube? And then I had to go after each one of those occurrences. You just can't keep up with it.
You can't keep up with it. George is prolific. George will put out 20 videos a day, and if he's not doing it, his brother will put out another 15.
A YouTube spokesperson told CNN the company is committed to promoting accurate information about the coronavirus and taking down misinformation when it's flagged by users. YouTube took down some trending comments under Webb's videos after CNN asked about them.
A couple years ago, I was diagnosed with a rare cancer.
All right, so that's the gist of the Benassi story, right? There's George Webb making up this frivolous garbage. I baited him one more time, right? This is kind of interesting. Again, if you disagree with the way I find things out with George, so here's a little video I made, a minute video, and I said that Jenny Moore wasn't dead, and she was standing there with me to see maybe if George would come out of his shell a little bit.
Woo, hold on to your hat for this one. Breaking news. I did a little investigative journalism on my own, right? And I have a very special guest who wants to stay off the camera right now. Right? Jenny Moore is alive.
Mm-hmm.
Fucking alive, man.
No, she's not, though. She's definitely dead. Jenny Moore's dead. I've seen the autopsy. Very, very dead. But I wanted to see, before we had the autopsy, I wanted to see if George would come out a little bit and talk about the death of his friend.
Oh, my God. That was George Webb's idea? George Webb's idea? That's fucking crazy, man. Jenny's here. She's alive and well. She's looking good. Wow, George.
It's funny. We're reiterating a lot of the coronavirus here, too. People in Italy, Doggy Girlfriend Solo says, all of those people in Italy were murdered in the hospital by blown out lungs on ventilators. Do ventilators blow out lungs? Oh, yeah. If you're on a ventilator more than a week, your lungs are already approaching damage. The alveoli, the smallest cells in the lungs, can't handle it. Right.
George, you almost had us, man. You almost had us, George.
Dundee Hunkenbrock says, aren't you just as ridiculous as George Webb? No, I'm not as ridiculous. Remember, George Webb is actively smearing and damaging people. I don't do that. Who am I? I'm using a tactic to bring out a very, very, nefarious type of character, George Webb. All right? Deal with him and you'll find out. But am I the same as George? Am I as ridiculous as George? No. You obviously don't watch the show on a daily basis. I'm not ridiculous at all. I deal with the news on a daily basis as it flows. So, how exactly you smoke out a conspiracy theorist like George Webb is up in the air. Right?
Jenny Moore, alive and well. Breaking news.
All right, so I wanted to see what he would do about that one. So there's a lot of them. There's a lot more videos here. Here's where I interviewed him. We watched the what else? Schizophrenia. I don't know what this one is. Let's see what he's saying. See what he's saying. What are you saying, George?
So what's he talking about? I don't know what he's talking about.
Okay, day 6, part 5. Marcus Conte here down at National Harbor. He's up there in Brooklyn. He did a thing on Central Islip today. It reminded me of 18 months ago and my stuff.
A thing on Central Islip. I have no idea what he's talking about.
LISK up there. Even though he's not my biggest fan, I just want to say thank you, Marcus Conte, for going out, getting out of your mother's basement and going out and reporting on the street. It's a story that needs to be reported.
Yeah, thank you, George. Thank you. I don't know what the fuck you're talking about, George. You're just making shit up. What else? George Webb, I did a video. He got Donald Trump to say Imran Awan, this wild character. But anyway, so I'll leave it there. As I said earlier, if you want to look at more of these videos about my coverage of George Webb, you go to my website, my YouTube site. You click on the search there and just put in George Webb. George Webb. And bang, see, there you are. It's telling us we're live right now. And all of the other videos are up there. So good luck, George. Good luck in your frivolous lawsuit. See if the market is open. And ding, ding. Nice. NASDAQ is moving up nicely. NASDAQ is up 66 points right now. Dow Jones Industrial Average down 63. S&P 500 up 4. Let's look at the big board. We have Apple up 70 cents. Amazon up $2.22. Google up 41 cents. Microsoft up $1. And for a disclaimer, I've never worked for any of these companies. I just talk about the stock market because it's interesting. And you always follow the money. Bitcoin up $666 right now, 2.5%. That's significant. Lockheed Martin down. War stocks, Raytheon down. All of the holiest of holy vaccine stocks, Pfizer, Moderna, Johnson & Johnson, all down today. All down. It's funny how the story is fading. It looks like, overall, it looks like the Dow is kind of hovering in this level, but it looks like the NASDAQ is making a push higher, and we love that. We love that the NASDAQ is going a lot higher today. So thank you for joining me today. My name is Marcus Conte. I know I was a little winded, and a lot of this story is kind of convoluted, but words matter. Truth matters. It can't just be about publicity. I'll say whatever I want, and I'll go along with it, as long as it benefits me. That type of thinking is bad. And so, Dr. Malone, if you need any assistance at all in this as a witness. Don't ask me to write a lot of stuff. Don't ask me to submit a lot of stuff because I'm not going to do it. You're on your own with that. But if you need me, if you want to call me as a witness, if you want to use any of my research that I have up on YouTube, you're more than welcome to use it. There'll be no copyright strikes. You can republish, you can play, you can talk about all you want. You have my permission right here, right now. So thank you all for joining me. Marcus Conte reporting. Boom. Bada bing. Bada boom.